Okay, I'm going to start this morning by just officially welcoming everyone. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning, interested to do some meditation and learn some teachings of the Buddha. What I'm going to be doing is starting with meditation and guiding you guys in meditation. And then afterwards, we're going to transition into what's referred to as the Pali Canon in English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is after we do our meditation. The way that we start our classes, we start with meditation because this helps to train the mind to move closer and closer to the enlightened mental state. What enlightenment is where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where you no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these feelings in others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. And this happens through training the mind. You'll experience concentration, focus, clear mind. You'll experience deep memory. Your personal, professional relationships will really blossom and be at ease because you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships anymore. You'll have trained your mind to eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing this. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood anymore. You'll never experience a bad mood anymore by the time you get to enlightenment because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. So meditation is one of the primary trainings that we use in order to train the mind, but you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. So you need other teachings as well. So that's why after we meditate, I'm going to transition into sharing some teachings with you from the Buddha. So if you'd like to meditate with us, the way that I start to meditate is I ease into the meditation with some chanting. If you'd like to see these chants, they're on a laminated sheet on the table over there. You can see the chants that I do. There's the Pali language and the English translation. You're welcome to get one at any time. The chanting that was done during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was done as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks they would recite his teachings word for word for word for word, because everything he taught was oral. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings word for word for word. Today, we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings, but we do chant in order to ease the mind into meditation and experience more concentration and focus and clarity of mind as you ease into meditation. So I'm going to start with these chants. If you look at the English translations, there's a lot of respect, there's a lot of gratitude and appreciation for the Buddha in these chants. I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because a Buddha doesn't walk around and teach people to chant these things to him. But instead, if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and sadness and frustration to this peaceful and joyful mental state, and they didn't want anything from you and they didn't expect anything from you, you would probably have a lot of appreciation and respect for that person too, because the Buddha just shared his time and effort and energy and resources to be able to help people get to enlightenment, and he did this without any expectation of anything in return. So as people were getting to this mental state, they had enormous amounts of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for him. So I think that these chants were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, as a way to show their respect and gratitude to him. So today I do these chants in order to ease the mind into meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. These chants is not a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. You're not praying to anybody. There's nothing mystical or magical that's happening with these chants. It literally is just to kind of bring some awareness of the mind, awareness of the breath, and ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. After the chanting, you're going to hear me providing some guidance during the meditation. There'll be a brief period of time where I'm just guiding us in the meditation, kind of instructing you of how to do the meditation while we're actually doing it. Then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll all be meditating together. Those of us here at the temple and everyone who's joining us online, we'll just all be meditating at the same time. You'll hear, I'm sure, occasional sounds here and there, maybe a dog barking or a car going past or something like this. But these are just all impermanent sounds. You're not going to ever be in an environment where it's completely quiet 100% of the time. You're going to hear occasional sounds. But if your mind tends to drift, just bring it back to the breath. You'll see how I guide you in the meditation. So after we do that quiet period of time where we're meditating together, we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll transition into talking about the things that we have to learn for the class. In terms of your body position, there's actually 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. It's common that people are learning meditation in the seated position. This is a primary position for people to learn in, either sitting on the floor or a chair, or some people might at home be sitting on a couch or a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair or something like this. So you can sit however you're comfortable. There's multiple ways to sit. It's not about everybody sitting exactly the same way. It's about finding what's comfortable for you. But I'll give you a little bit of guidance just to kind of help you if you haven't done this type of sitting and meditating before, that if you're on the floor, you might just sit with your legs lightly crossed, whereas if they're real tight, it might impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. So you're not interested in that. So just lightly cross the legs. Some people like to put their legs off the mat if you're on the floor. So if you put your legs off the mat, it gets the hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And then the hands and the arms, the Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together. And if you like that and you put that in your lap, then you could use it. But there's other options here, because remember, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. It's finding what's comfortable for you. So some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up. Some people just rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And the same thing goes for those of you that are in a chair. You could sit with your feet flat on the floor. You could sit with your ankles lightly crossed. You could even sit cross-legged in a chair like the way I'm doing. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And there's lots of different options here. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, so you can actively train your mind during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you are real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle, where it's erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, and it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose, nice deep breaths. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along in, and then I'll come back in with some guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Namasati sata tava manusanam Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะวาโพตังมหะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหะวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามาสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you'd like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'd like to welcome all of you guys here at the temple. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. For those of you guys that this is your first time here at the temple, I'd like to let you know that there's a bathroom in the back of the room. The very last door on the right, you can use this at any time. Feel free to get up and use the restroom, make yourself comfortable. There's even bathrooms outside the classroom. If you go outside the classroom into the parking lot, you'll see the signs that take you around to the main temple bathrooms. There's even larger bathrooms over there. We even have water and juice and snacks that is provided by our students that you're welcome to help yourself to and make yourself comfortable as you're here and you're learning today. As I mentioned, today is what's called the Pali Canon and English study group. This is where we study the original words of the Buddha more as a study group, where in other courses and programs and retreats that I share, I teach in a more traditional method where I'm going to be teaching and teaching and teaching and teaching, and then 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I'll open up to questions, and then I'll teach some more. 15 or 20, 30 minutes, I'll open up for questions. But this particular class, it's more of a study group where we study the original words of the Buddha, and I help you guys to be able to learn them and understand them. Because you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. You need more than just meditation. The Buddha taught for 45 years. He taught from the age of 35 until 80 when he died. And during that period of time, he taught many different topics. And this is assembled into what we refer to as the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is 45 large volumes of books that are about this thick. And this is capturing the original teachings of the Buddha in the Pali language. That's why we refer to it as the Pali Canon. The Pali language is no longer a spoken language today. So this has all been translated into different languages like Thai or English or other languages like this. So we study the Pali Canon, but we study it through the English language. And the reason why is because as you learn the teachings of the Buddha, you investigate them, you examine them, as you reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them, integrating them into your life, this is what's going to move your mind to the enlightened mental state. As I was mentioning at the beginning of class, the enlightened mental state is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger and sadness and frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this and all other discontent feelings are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. Your mind will be focused, concentrated. You'll have deep memory and clarity of mind because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing these things to occur, that you're eliminating certain pollutions of the mind. You'll notice your personal and professional relationships really blossom and they're at ease because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships. Slowly but surely, you'll see the people around you won't be bitter and harsh and hostile either. But if you're bitter and hostile and harsh and resentful in your relationships, that's what you're putting out. That's all going to come back to you. So you can transform your mind to be at ease, where you can be peaceful and joyful. You'll get to the point where your mind's not even in a bad mood anymore. You're just always in a good mood. So I'm going to share those teachings with you because in this particular program, we study, like I mentioned, the original words of the Buddha. We have various programs and courses here. The place where people usually start is in either one of our foundational courses, or they'll start in what's called the group learning program. The group learning program meets each Sunday and Wednesday, and you can do that here at the temple. You can join by live stream if you're traveling in the world. You can come in through YouTube or Facebook or even Zoom. You can come in to learn in right here, even if you're traveling around the world. The group learning program, it meets at 9 a.m. on Sundays and Wednesdays and 9 p.m. on Sundays and Wednesdays as well. So you can join either time. I teach here at the temple at 9 a.m. and then at 9 p.m. I teach from my home and I live stream it. So this group learning program is a really nice foundational program where in this book series that I share, the very first volume of the book series helps you to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. And each Sunday I go chapter by chapter by chapter. We're about halfway through that program, but you can join it at any time, where this Sunday, tomorrow, is actually a perfect time to come because we're going to be learning the very first teaching of the Buddha, which is called the Four Noble Truths and the Three Universal Truths. This is where you're going to understand the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. The Buddha explains to you in a way that you can independently verify exactly why you experience anger, exactly why you experience stress and anxiety and all these other discontent feelings. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, we will think other people are causing us to be angry. We will think that other people are frustrating us or annoying us. But what you can see through the teachings of the Buddha is that your own mind is causing these feelings, and this is why you can eliminate them. You don't need to go around and teach other people to do things your way. You can train your mind and get to this peace and joy by uprooting the pollutions that are causing these discontent feelings. So if you'd like to join for our group learning program at any time on Sundays and Wednesdays, that's a really great place to start, or our foundational courses and retreats that we have. You're welcome to join any of those things. Today's class, this is a class that usually students will move into after having already studied the foundational teachings. But if this is your first time here, which many of you it is, no worries. You're still going to learn plenty today. Just understand that this isn't the traditional method of starting off and learning. This isn't the first place that you would start in terms of the teachings that I'm going to share with you today. Usually you would start in a foundational program. This Pali Canon and English study group, what we do is in this book series of 13 books, we study volumes 2 through 13 over the course of a year and a half. We work our way through all those individual books. And today we're actually in volume 13. So you're coming in at the very end, and we're going to be restarting this in about 2 weeks. On July 20th, we're going to be restarting from the very beginning of the Pali Canon and English study group, which is volume 2, chapters 1. So I'll help you guys to learn today. because I teach it in a way that even if this is your first time here, you'll still be able to learn. But just understand there's other programs that will be more supportive of you getting started. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. is a great time to be here to get started on the path to enlightenment and understanding the very first teaching of the Buddha. So the way that we do this program is we have these chapters. This is chapter 71 from volume 13. And what I do is I invite anybody here at the temple to be able to read this particular chapter. And those of you guys in Zoom, you can volunteer as well. If somebody would read this chapter out loud, then afterwards I will share some teachings on that chapter. Then I'll open up to any and all questions that you guys might have related to this particular chapter. So if you would like to read here, or if you'd like to ask any questions at any point at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl in front of the camera. If you could just get a microphone, press the gray button, you'll see the lights come on, and then hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. And then for those of you guys that are online, if you would like to read in Zoom, all you need to do is electronically raise your hand. I'll see that, and you can open up your microphone and you'll be able to read. And then for asking questions online, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your question in the comment section. And if you're in Zoom, then you can electronically raise your hand and open up your mic and ask any questions that you like. And then for those of you guys that if you get a mic here at the temple, you can just take it back to your seat with you. We have plenty of microphones because you might have some questions or follow-up questions, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share your microphone with the people that are around you. So is there anybody here, anybody online that would like to volunteer to read this first chapter? And by the way, chapters are usually pretty small. Steve, sure. Steve breaks the ice all the time.
Chapter 71, Persons who are worthy of gifts, 15th discourse, monks. Possessing 7 qualities, a monk is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respectful salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 7? Here, a monk is one who knows the teaching, who knows the meaning, who knows himself, who knows moderation, who knows the proper time, who knows the community, and who knows the wholesome and unwholesome kinds of persons. 1. And how is a monk one who knows the teachings? Here, a monk knows the teachings, the discourses, mixed prose and verse, expositions, verses, inspired utterances, quotations, birth stories, marvellous accounts, and questions and answers. If a monk did not know the teachings, the discourses, mixed prose and verse, expositions, verses, inspired utterances, quotations, birth stories, marvellous accounts, and questions and answer, he would not be called one who knows the teachings. But because he knows the teachings, the discourses, mixed prose and verse, expositions, verses, inspired utterances, quotations, birth stories, and marvellous accounts and questions and answer, he is called one who knows the teachings. Thus he is one who knows the teachings. And how is a monk one who knows the meaning? Here a monk knows the meaning of this and that statement thus. This is the meaning of this statement. This is the meaning of that statement. If a monk did not know the meaning of this and that statement thus, he would not be called one who knows the meaning. But because he knows the meaning of this and that statement thus, this is the meaning of this statement. This is the meaning of that statement. He is called one who knows the meaning. Thus he is one who knows the teachings and one who knows the meaning. 3. And how is a monk one who knows himself? Here a monk knows himself thus. I have so much confidence, virtuous behaviour, moral conduct, learning, generosity, wisdom, and discernment. If a monk did not know himself thus, I have so much confidence, virtuous behaviour, moral conduct, learning, generosity.
The mic went out. Yeah, the batteries go out from time to time. This is impermanence, right? The Buddha teaches about how things are constantly changing. Nothing around you is permanent, but the mind craves for things to be permanent. It wants it to be permanent. So when you experience impermanence, You get frustrated, you get agitated, you get annoyed. But if you just understand that, everything around you is impermanent, just get a new mic, like Steve did, right? No frustration.
Okay, I'll pick it up somewhere. If a monk did not know himself thus, I have so much confidence, virtuous behaviour, moral conduct, learning, generosity, wisdom and discernment, he would not be called one who knows himself. But because he knows himself thus, I have so much confidence, virtuous behaviour, learning, generosity, wisdom and discernment, he is called one who knows himself. Thus, he is one who knows the teaching, one who knows the meaning, and one who knows himself. And how is a monk one who knows moderation? Here, a monk knows moderation in accepting robes, alms, food, lodgings, and medicines, and provisions for the sick. If a monk did not know moderation in accepting robes, alms, food, lodgings, and medicine, and provisions for the sick, he would not be called one who knows moderation. But because he knows moderation in accepting robes, alms, food, lodgings, and medicines, and provisions for the sick, he is called one who knows moderation. Thus he is one who knows the teachings, one who knows the meaning, one who knows himself, and one who knows moderation. And how is a monk one who knows the proper time? Here, a monk knows the proper time thus: this is the time for learning, this is the time for questioning, this is the time for effort, this is the time for seclusion. If a monk did not know the proper time, this is the time for learning, this is the time for questioning, this is the time for effort, this is the time for seclusion, he would not be called one who knows the proper time. But because he knows the proper time, this is the time for learning, this is the time for questioning, this is the time for effort, this is the time for seclusion, he is called one who knows the proper time. Thus he is one who knows the teachings, one who knows the meaning, one who knows himself, one who knows moderation, and one who knows the proper time. 6. And how is a monk who knows the community? Here a monk knows the assembly. This is the community of Karyas, this is a community of Brahmins, this is a community of householders, this is a community of ascetics. Among these one should approach this community. In such way, one should stop in such a way, one should act in such a way, one should sit down in such a way, one should speak in such a way, one should remain silent in such a way. If a monk did not know the community, this is the community of Karyas, this is a community of Brahmins, this is a community of householders, this is a community of ascetics. Among these one should approach in such a way, one should stop in such a way, one should act in such a way, one should sit down in such a way, one should speak in such a way, one should remain silent in such a way. He should not be called one who knows the community. But because he knows the community of Katyas, this is the community of Brahmins, this is the community of householders, this is the community of ascetics. Among these one should approach this community in such a way. One should stop in such a way, one should act in such a way, one should sit down in such a way, one should speak in such a way, one should remain silent in such a way. One is called one who knows the community. Thus, he is one who knows the teachings, one who knows the meaning, one who knows himself, one who knows moderation, one who knows proper time, and one who knows the community. 7. And how is a monk who knows the wholesome and unwholesome kinds of persons? Here a monk understands persons in terms of pairs. 2 persons. One is interested to see the noble person. No, one is interested to see the noble ones. One is not interested to see the noble ones. The person who is not interested to see the noble ones is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who is interested to see the noble ones is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. 2 persons who want to see the noble ones. One is interested to hear the good, wholesome teachings. One is not interested to hear the good, wholesome teachings. The person who is not interested to hear the good, wholesome teachings is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who is interested to hear the good, wholesome teachings is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. 3. 2 persons who are interested to hear the good, wholesome teachings. One listens to the teachings with eager ears. One does not listen to the teaching with eager ears. The person who does not listen to the teachings with eager ears is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who listens to the teachings with eager ears is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. 4. 2 persons who listen to the teachings with eager ears, one having heard the teachings retains them in mind. One, having heard the teachings, does not retain them in mind. The person who, having heard the teachings, does not retain them in mind is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who, having heard the teaching, retains them in mind is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving of admiration, commendable. 5. Two persons who, having heard the teachings, retain them in mind. One examines the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind. One does not examine the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind. The person who does not examine the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who examines the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. 6. Two persons, one who examine the meaning of the teachings that have been retained in mind. One has understood the meaning and the teachings and the practices in accordance with the teachings. One has not understood the meaning of the teachings and does not practice in accordance with the teachings. The person who has not understood the meaning and the teachings and does not practice in accordance with the teaching is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who has understood the meaning of the teachings then practices in accordance with the teachings is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. 7. Two persons who have understood the meaning of the teachings and practice in accordance with the teachings. One is practicing for his own welfare, but not for the welfare of others. One is practicing for his own welfare and for the welfare of others. The person who is practicing for his own welfare, but not the welfare of others, is in that respect blameworthy, responsible for wrongdoing. The person who is practicing for his own welfare and for the welfare of others is in that respect praiseworthy, deserving admiration, commendable. It is in this way that a monk understands persons in terms of pairs. It is in this way that a monk is one who knows the wholesome and unwholesome kinds of persons. Possessing these 7 qualities, a monk is worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of respectful salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world.
Okay, thank you, Steve. This is actually a pretty long one compared to what we usually have, so thank you for reading that entire discourse, Steve. So there's a lot here that the Buddha is sharing. This isn't a book titled Generosity, where you're learning about giving and sharing, because when you live open-handedly and you're sharing with others without any expectation of anything in return, this is helping your mind to train to let go. Because the cause of your anger and sadness and frustration, which I'll go into detail about tomorrow, is that the mind is holding on to things. It's wanting things to be a certain way, that if you get what you want, you get happy, you get excited. But if you don't get what you want, you get angry, you get frustrated, you get sad, or some other discontent feeling. And because you live in an impermanent world, you can't always get things your way. But the mind craves for things to be permanent. It clings and it holds on. So the teachings of the Buddha are training your mind to let go. Even that meditation we just did is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts in that meditation. The goal is that when you have a thought, to notice it sooner and sooner and to train your mind to let it go. So if 10, 20, 30 different times during your meditation you had to let go, let go, let go, this is actually really good for the mind. So generosity, where you're giving and sharing your time, your effort, your energy, and your resources without any expectation of anything in return, this is also training your mind to let go. So the Buddha taught generosity because it's helpful for you to be able to get to enlightenment, where you can train your mind to eliminate selfishness. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, you'll experience selfishness, where you're holding on to things very tightly. You know, as we're growing up as children, we all learn to share, right? Our parents will typically teach us to share our toys and things like this. They don't exactly explain to us why, because they probably didn't know, but there's a reason why it's important to share. But as we age, we tend to not share. We tend to hoard things, that our mind starts working and we start having jobs, we start making income, we start having a house and a car and jewelry and things like this. And we tend to hoard things almost like an animal, like a squirrel hoarding nuts or acorns, or, you know, like some other animal that hoards food. we're not an animal, we're a human being, and we can function through a higher consciousness where we are able to give and share with other people, where animals have a really hard time sharing with other beings, but we can share. And by doing so, you'll find that there's joy that's in the mind, and you'll find all these other benefits. One of the benefits is that it enhances the quality of your mind, that you'll notice that there's less and less craving and holding on, and this will help decrease the causes and conditions that are leading to your anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings. There's other teachings you need besides generosity to be able to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state and train it to eliminate the causes and conditions that lead to the discontent feelings. But this is one of the practices that the Buddha taught, because he practiced generosity extensively in his life to be able to get to the point where his mind was enlightened. So he was explaining to you what it took for him to get to this enlightened mental state. The Buddha's not teaching you rules and commandments. He's not trying to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything. He's not even trying to convince you to do anything specifically. It's up to you to decide that you're done with the anger, you're done with the frustration, you're done with the broken relationships, and you're not interested in experiencing this over and over and over again in your life, and you would like to get to the peace and the joy. And if you would, the teachings of the Buddha are here for you to be able to help you accomplish that. So what he does in his teachings is he's explaining to you what it took for him to get to that enlightened mental state, so that then through you learning that, reflecting on it to independently verify it and practice it, you can see the truth for yourself that it works to improve the condition of the mind and the condition of your life, because you'll see that your relationships become more and more peaceful and more joyful. So here what we've got is we've got a whole bunch of things that the Buddha is sharing about how to know who to give a gift to, because part of your generosity that you learn about is that you're going to need to practice generosity with the people around you, like your parents, your siblings, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends, people you don't even know. You're going to need to practice generosity, sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. And this is going to help you eliminate selfishness in the craving, desire, attachment. But there's also a certain type of generosity that you practice towards helping the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha. Everything you see around you is been a donation at any particular time. The land that we're sitting on, this was a donation from a Thai person at some point, donated this land to build this temple. This building that we're in, it was constructed by the resources of people that had come together to be able to create this building, so that now we have a place to share these teachings. This projector that I'm using, this was donated by a student. The air conditioning that you're enjoying, the chairs and the cushions that you're sitting on, this is all donations from people that benefited from the teachings of the Buddha and decided that they would like to see the teachings of the Buddha be available for other people as well. So people have made offerings of gifts that are helping us to be able to share the teachings. And the Buddha is giving you guidance about the type of individual that you would like to look for in order to be able to share your generosity and actually produce what we call merit. Because if you can imagine, during the lifetime of a Buddha, there were thousands and thousands of people learning with him. And a lot of these people were getting to enlightenment. There was a core group of people that were practicing the teachings very closely, and many people were getting to enlightenment during his lifetime, and they could tell that they were enlightened because their mind was peaceful and joyful. But there was also people on the outer edges of the community that weren't really practicing the teachings very closely, but they were maybe shaving their hair, wearing an orange robe, and kind of coming around the Buddha and learning teachings, but they weren't necessarily practicing them very closely. So the Buddha teaches how to know of individuals that it would be wise for you to support who are actually sharing the teachings. And here he's giving 7 qualities. And this is the 15th discourse of where he's talking about some particular aspect of how to determine whether it would be wise for you to support any particular person. So he gives lots of details of how to figure out whether you should support a particular individual. Because you could see a monk or an ordained practitioner or a teacher like me, you might see somebody out there smoking, gambling, using drugs and alcohol, hitting animals. And if you're supporting that individual, your support is going to those kinds of things. So you're not interested in supporting those kinds of things. So you're not interested in judging other people and looking down on them, right? But you would like to use discernment to decide where is it that you should share your resources to be able to help others. If there's a certain teacher or ordained practitioner who's flying around on a private jet and spending money on Rolls Royces and Rolex watches and Gucci sunglasses, this would be very unwise to support that kind of thing, because you would like to see your support going towards the continuation of the sharing of the teachings. So the Buddha here is giving you guidance on the type of individual to look for that is sharing the teachings and helping people to get closer and closer to enlightenment, because those are the types of individuals that are going to be helpful to you and helpful to others. So those would be the types of people to support. So here he's giving you 7 things to look for. And he's talking about someone who knows the teachings, someone who studied his teachings very deeply and is able to talk about his teachings. So he goes into detail about that. Here he's saying somebody who knows the meaning of his teachings, right? Then he talks about someone who knows himself. Basically, someone who knows where they're at in their own practice, right? They know that they have a certain amount of confidence, a certain amount of moral conduct, a certain amount of learning, a certain amount of generosity, wisdom, and discernment. Discernment is wise decision-making. This is what the Buddha taught everybody, to have wise decision-making. Because when you make wise decisions, it's going to produce wholesome results in your life. But when you make unwise decisions, it will produce unwholesome results. So everything on the path to enlightenment is about helping you to gain wisdom about this cause and effect, or action and result, and understanding how to make wise decisions that produces wholesome results in your life. So if an individual who's a teacher has an understanding of their own practice, they would understand these things about themselves, and you'll be able to observe that about a teacher, that they'll understand these things about themselves. And then the Buddha talks about someone who knows moderation. What this is that when a teacher is teaching, students will typically make donations at different times of their time, effort, energy, and resources to help us to be able to share the teachings. But if a teacher was just taking and taking and taking and taking and taking, then the student could potentially be without resources. So he teaches the student to be able to share from the middle way. Whereas if you were to share excessively and you didn't have the resources you need to be able to sustain your life, like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, that's not going to produce peacefulness in your life. But if you never shared and you were selfish, this isn't going to be helpful in your life either. So you need to learn how to share from the middle way. But because students are unenlightened and they're not necessarily practicing the middle way, a teacher needs to be aware when their students are sharing with them. And they need to be aware that when they're sharing, to ensure that they're not just taking from their students. So I'll give you an example here. One time I had a student whose wife had just recently got laid off from work, and they had mentioned to me that they had recently got laid off from work. And then like a day or two later, they were like, hey, I'd like to donate some money to you because you've been teaching me now for over a year, and I would like to provide you some help to be able to help you share your teachings. And I was like, well, you know, your wife just got laid off and it sounds like you're going to have difficulties with your finances. Maybe now's not the best time for you to make that donation, right? And I said, maybe you should think about it a little bit before you make a final decision. So this is what the Buddha is teaching us, is to make sure that as teachers that we're aware of our students' lives, and when they're making offerings to us, that we are aware of those kinds of things. Because if we were to just take from the student, then it's leaving the student in a situation where they're not able to provide for their own basic needs. And a student's mind isn't necessarily always aware of the middle way. So a teacher should be further along on the path. They should either be enlightened or very close to enlightenment before they start teaching, so that way they can guide their students in things like practicing generosity. Then the Buddha talks about one who knows proper time. This is where he's talking about learning and questioning and when is the appropriate time to do certain things. And a teacher should know that. Anybody that you're interested to support should know that. Then he talks about knowing a community, meaning knowing certain people within the community. Then he talks about lots of different things here about terms of people that are doing unwholesome things and people that are doing wholesome things. And he's talking about these two pairs of people. So he's saying people here that are not interested in seeing the noble ones. What he means by this is anyone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, that if someone's into wholesome things, they would be interested in visiting people who are making wise choices and sharing the teachings and into wholesome things, because by you choosing to visit those types of people and get help, you would be able to then learn the path to enlightenment for yourself. Whereas if you didn't visit people who were deeply steeped in the teachings, you wouldn't be able to learn yourself to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. Then he talks about this individual who's interested in hearing the good, wholesome teachings. Someone who's interested in hearing the teachings is interested in improving their life, because the path to enlightenment is essentially like doing inner work to improve your life and improve your condition of your mind. That by you choosing to do this inner work or practice this self-help program, the condition of your mind and the condition of your life is gradually improving. So what he's sharing here is that this is someone who's interested in hearing the teachings would be interested in improving their life. Then he talks about someone who listens to the teachings with eager ears, right? Not just somebody who's kind of like just lackadaisical and doesn't really care, maybe surfing the internet on their phone. They don't really care about what they're hearing, or they don't really have eager ears. They're not truly interested in understanding. They might just be showing up, but they're not really paying attention to what's being taught. This is what the Buddha is teaching, that it would be wise to have these eager ears where you're interested in learning and actively understanding the teachings, because that's what's going to lead to your enlightenment. Whereas if you're showing up somewhere and you're not actively involved in the learning, you're not going to actually experience the results and the benefits of that particular learning environment. Then he talks about once someone has eager ears and they've actually heard the teachings, that they are able to retain the teachings in the mind, that they're able to actually not only hear them, but they can retain the teachings because they've understood them, and now they can go out in the world and practice them. And then once they've retained the teachings, they actually examine them. This is what the Buddha encouraged you to do. He encouraged you to investigate his teachings, examine them, not to believe them. You never believe the teachings of the Buddha. His teachings aren't based in belief. It's not a bunch of beliefs that you believe a bunch of things and then something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning teachings now in this life. You're examining them. You're looking to investigate the teachings. Then you're looking to reflect on them, to independently verify them. And then you're practicing his teachings, integrating them into your life. And this is where the real improvement is experienced in your life. So he never said, just believe me, just believe me. He said, come examine my teachings, come investigate them. Because if you investigate these teachings close enough, you'll see that they lead exactly where he said they do, to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful and joyful permanently. You will never again experience anger and sadness. It's impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger and sadness. And you do that through examining the teachings, through investigating them. Then, after investigating the teachings, what he's talking about here is someone who practices the teachings. That's what I meant when I said examining, investigating. You reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you integrate them into your life and practice them. That's what's going to produce the real improvement. You could intellectually understand certain teachings, but if you're not practicing them, you still have a lack of wisdom. So we might know that it's unwise to use drugs and alcohol, for example, but we might still go out in the world and do it, right? And that's where the mind is still lacking wisdom. Or you might know it's unwise to lie. Intellectually, you might understand that. But then when you're in the moment, you might still lie in certain situations. So you need to not only understand the teachings intellectually, but you need to practice them as well. And that's what's going to produce the results in your life, when you're actually practicing the teachings. Then, having understood the teachings and then practicing them, the Buddha says not only does an individual practice them for their own welfare and peacefulness, but for other people's welfare and peacefulness too. Because everything the Buddha is teaching you is about how to not cause harm to other beings or cause harm to yourself. So here, if you are only practicing them for yourself and not for the welfare of other people, then the mind is still selfish. But instead, when you're on this journey to enlightenment, you're practicing for your own welfare and your own peacefulness, but you're also practicing for other people's benefit and welfare too. Because when you're not killing and you're not stealing and you're not having sexual misconduct and you're not lying and you're not taking drugs and intoxicants, for example, you're improving the health of your own mind, but you're also helping other people too, because you're not causing harm to other beings. When you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile, when you learn to be loving and kind and warm and gentle, you're causing less and less harm to other people. This is for your welfare and others as well. Because when you're choosing to not cause harm in the world, when you're making wise decisions around your moral conduct, this is improving the results that you experience in life. Because as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile and resentful to other people, this is just all harming those people, and it's all just going to keep coming back to you. So this is why certain relationships you might have right now, there's arguments and bitterness and hostility and aggression in these relationships. And the only way for you to transform these relationships is for you to transform your own mind. Sometimes when we're in these kinds of relationships, we want the other person to change. We keep trying to put pressure on the other person to change. But that's not going to fix your problem. Because as long as you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, it's just going to keep coming back to you because you're causing harm to other people. So you need to transform your mind. And when you transform your mind and you clean up your mind, then you'll notice that people around you will gradually, slowly, but surely change as well. And this is what the teachings of the Buddha provide you, is the ability of understanding how to transform your own mind. And now you can function differently in the world. You can function in your relationships with more peace and more harmony and more joy and more love. And this is where you'll see your mind improving, and this is where you'll see your life improving. So he's bringing to your attention that the goal of this path is, yes, to improve your own mind, but this is also for the benefit of you, and it's for the benefit of other people as well, because you're not causing harm to others. And then because of that, you won't experience harm coming back to you. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Remember, those of you guys online, you can ask questions through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Do you guys have any questions here or anything online? Just going to check online. I don't see any questions here. Let's see. All right, so I don't see any questions here. So we'll go on to the next one. These aren't all as long as this. Thank you again, Steve, for reading. That was really, really good. Here, let's see. This one's 1 page, 2 pages. Yeah, this one's just 2 pages here. And so is there someone that would like to read this one? This is chapter 72 in volume 13. Yeah, Kushi.
A monk who is perfected in morality, a monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Venerable Sir, whereas some ascetics and Brahmins, feeding on the food of the dedicated, make their living by such base arts, such wrong means of livelihood as palmistry, divining by signs, portents, dreams, body marks, mouse gnawing, fire oblations from a ladle of husks, rice powder, rice grains, ghee or oil, from the mouth or of blood, reading the fingertips, house and garden lore, skill in charms, ghost lore, earth house lore, snake lore, poison lore, rat lore, bird lore, crow lore, foretelling a person's lifespan, charms against arrows, knowledge of animals' cries. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus he is perfected in morality, whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as judging the marks of gems, sticks, clothes, swords, spears, arrows, weapons, women, men, boys, girls, male and female slaves, elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, cocks, quails, iguanas, bamboo rats, tortoises, deer. A monk refrains from such base art and wrong means of livelihood. Thus he is perfected in morality. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting the chiefs will march out, the chiefs will march back, our chiefs will advance and other chiefs will retreat, our chiefs will win and the other chiefs will lose, the other chiefs will win and ours will lose. Thus there will be victory of one side and defeat for the other. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus he is perfected in morality. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting an eclipse of the moon, the sun, a star, that the sun and moon will go on their proper course, will go astray, that a star will go on its proper course, will go astray, that there will be a shower of meteors, a blaze in the sky, an earthquake, thunder, rising, setting, darkening, brightening of the moon, the sun, the stars, and such will be the outcome of these things. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood, thus he is perfected in morality. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting good or bad rainfall, a good or bad harvest, security, danger, disease, health, or accounting, computing, calculating, poetic composition, philosophizing. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood, thus he is perfected in morality. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as arranging the giving and taking in marriage, engagements and divorces, declaring the time for saving and spending, bringing good or bad luck, procuring abortions, using spells to bind the tongue, binding the jaw, making the hands jerk, causing deafness, getting answers with a mirror, a girl medium, a heavenly being, worshipping the sun or great Brahma, God, breathing fire, invoking the goodness of luck. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood, thus he is perfected in morality. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins, feeding on the food of the dedicated, make their living by such base arts, such wrong means of livelihood as appeasing the heavenly being and redeeming vows to them, making earth house spells, causing virality or impotence, preparing and consecrating building sites, giving ritual risings and bathings, making sacrifices, giving amenities, purges, expectorants and phagmagogies, giving ear, eye, nose, medicine, ointments, and counter ointments, eye surgery, predatory, using balms to counter the side effects of previous remedies. A monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood, thus he is perfected in morality. And then, sir, that monk who is perfected in morality sees no danger from any side owing to his being restrained by morality, just as duly anointed Katya king, having conquered his enemies by that very fact, sees no danger from any side. So the monk, on account of his morality, sees no danger anywhere. He experiences in himself the blameless bliss that comes from maintaining the noble morality. In this way, sir, he is perfected in morality.
Thank you so much, Kushi. So, in order to understand this discourse, you need to understand a little bit about the background of the Buddha and his teachings and what was going on at the time. The Buddha was a prince destined to become a king, and he stepped away from that life in order to enter into a life of homelessness, where he basically wore rag robes, he shaved his hair, he walked down the street. People gave him food and clothing and shelter and medical care. They would invite him into their home, and he would live alongside of his students for a week or a month or 2 months, and he would teach the family and he would teach other villagers in the village, and they would be supporting him with the food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Where at one time he was a very rich, wealthy prince destined to become a king, he walked away from all of that because it doesn't lead to happiness. It doesn't lead to the peacefulness that he was looking to experience. So he entered into this life of homelessness, and his students were essentially supporting him to be able to live his life and sustain his life. And not only him, but also his students that were ordained with him, they would also live with other people, and they would be supported by those household practitioners who are going out into the fields and working really hard and sustaining their life and their family's life, they were also giving some of that support to these ordained practitioners to be able to sustain their life. And what the Buddha taught is that if you're going to be ordained and you're going to share these teachings, that you need to be willing to let go of your worldly life and fully enter into this life of homelessness, where you're making yourself available to other people to be able to learn and be able to develop on the path to enlightenment. Your goal as an ordained practitioner should be to get to enlightenment and deeply practice the teachings, gaining the wisdom of what it takes for you to get to enlightenment. And then having accomplished that wisdom, you can then share that with other people. And the people around you who are learning from you, they're providing you offerings as an ordained practitioner to be able to live in this womb. So the monastery is like the womb of a woman. It's the perfect environment for a human being to develop and grow. The womb of a woman is that. And the same thing is the monastery is the perfect environment for an individual to grow into a better and better human being. And this womb of the woman is created by household practitioners choosing to make offerings of food and clothing and shelter and medical care, and today even financial resources. So you see here where the Buddha is saying, whereas some ascetics and Brahmins feeding on the food of the dedicated make their living on such base arts, such wrong means of livelihood as, and then he goes into all these different details. What he's essentially teaching his students that are ordained is that, hey, if you're living off of this food and these donations of people that are dedicated to get to enlightenment, you should also be dedicated in getting to enlightenment, because as you get closer and closer to enlightenment, you'll be able to share those teachings with other people. Whereas if as an ordained practitioner, you're out there doing palm reading and fortune telling and, all these other things that he talks about here, you're absorbed in all these other things and you're not spending your time to learn and practice and train your mind to get to enlightenment. So you're not going to have the wisdom to help the people that are helping you. So if people are helping you and providing this womb as an ordained practitioner to be able to live within through their offerings, it would be wise for you to then share teachings to be able to help them. Where if you're doing any of these things as an ordained practitioner that the Buddha is talking about here, it's actually just the opposite of the teachings of the Buddha. He didn't teach people to read palms and be worried about the future and do all these other things that he's talking about here. The more you know about the teachings of the Buddha, for those of you guys that know about right view, these things that he's talking about here are exactly the opposite of right view. And that's why he's guiding ordained practitioners not to do these things, because it would take the community of students in the complete opposite direction of enlightenment if they were to actually do these things. But it also requires the ordained practitioner to be fully absorbed in these particular things rather than learning and growing and developing on the path to enlightenment and then having wisdom to be able to share with their students. So the Buddha is teaching a system and a methodology of how to experience this mutual support, where students are supporting the ordained practitioners are supporting the students, and together everybody's getting closer and closer to enlightenment. So the Buddha is providing this guidance to help the ordained practitioners realize that, hey, it would be unwise for us to do anything other than working to get to enlightenment and supporting the household practitioners to be able to also get to enlightenment. So he's listing out all these things so that the students can understand, as ordained practitioners, it would be unwise to do these things. Now, some of these things for a household practitioner, there's no harm in you doing these things. Like here you see where he's talking about accounting or computing or calculating. As a household practitioner, you might do these things, right? Because that's how you earn your living. But as an ordained practitioner, someone who's sharing the teachings with others, if we were off somewhere doing some business or some work or making money doing those kinds of things, we would be absorbed in those kinds of things. What the Buddha taught is for us as we teach to be fully involved in helping the students to be able to get to enlightenment. So that's why he's teaching ordained practitioners to not do these things. But if you do some of these things, you're not causing any harm to anybody through some of these things. So this is where you need to look at your livelihood and ensure that you're not causing any harm through your livelihood. And there's other teachings that the Buddha provides to help you and guide you to ensure that you're not causing harm in your livelihood. So things like if you had business in weapons, if you had business in living beings, business in meat, business in substances that cause heedlessness, or business in poisons. These are all causing harm to others. So you would need to look at that closely. Or if you were having scheming, which is like corruption, or if you were flattering people, just having insincere comments to get people to buy things from you. If you were hinting, meaning not being very clear and concise in your work, or if you were belittling people, degrading and diminishing people in your work, or if you were pursuing gain with gain, where you were just interested in making money and that's all you cared about in your job, you're not going to have a very fulfilling livelihood. The Buddha is helping you to train your mind and create this perfect life for yourself where work doesn't feel like work, right? If you're in a job that you despise right now and you really don't enjoy going to work every day, how could you get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if you don't even enjoy the place where you go 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, right? So the Buddha guides you in his teachings about how to get to this livelihood where you're not causing harm to others and you thoroughly enjoy the work that you're doing, that you have ambition and motivation and enthusiasm with the work that you're doing. So if you're ever interested in guidance to understand how to get to that kind of livelihood, you can look in volume 12, chapter 14. This is where the Buddha teaches about how to purify your mind and make a choice in your livelihood that is going to be where you have motivation and enthusiasm and ambition. Whereas if you wake up every day and you drag yourself to work, this isn't the kind of life that you would like to live. You would like to create the kind of life where when your feet hit the ground, you're very enthused to go to work and you really enjoy the work that you do and the place where you go, and that you don't have to hate your job. Sometimes people think that, that's what it means to have work or have a job, is that you're going to hate it and you just got to, grin and bear it. But that's not the type of life that you would be interested to live. You would like to create a livelihood for yourself that you thoroughly enjoy. And if that's not where you're at right now, that's okay. But you can learn how to gradually get to that point where you just thoroughly enjoy the work that you do. And you can't imagine doing anything else but that because you enjoy it so much. Okay, so this is the Buddha describing a monk who is perfected in morality, because in terms of someone that you would be interested in supporting in terms of your generosity, that's why this is in this particular book, is you would like to look for somebody who's practicing in this way. So if you see an ordained practitioner who's doing palm reading and fortune teller and tattooing and any of these other things, the Buddha is saying it would be unwise to support this individual. Okay, so any questions on this chapter? Yes, Rachel. Let me get my mouse to the right spot. There you go. What question do you have, Rachel?
Yeah, language question. What does base arts mean?
Base arts means like what you're choosing to do as a livelihood. And that's what he's talking about here. It's like making their living by such base arts, meaning like some activity. They would consider these as arts. They would consider these as arts during their lifetime. The Buddha actually refers to them as lowly arts, that they're very low, meaning that they're not a purified morality. So this is like an activity that he's talking about, that someone would do in order to support themselves. Because if you're an ordained practitioner and you're living off the food and the donations of the public, you should be a Buddhist monk, right? Or you should be an ordained practitioner, not over here doing any kind of other things. So that's what he's guiding people to do.
Okay. So here arts is kind of like livelihoods. It's not the arts we usually talk.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
So here the word arts, it's not means like painting or something like this. It's a kind of livelihood.
Yeah, it's a livelihood, like a craft or a livelihood.
Okay. Another language question is about the word computing. I think it's using the original meaning of computing, which means calculating, yes, because at Buddha's time, there is no computers or
Exactly. This would be like like he's talking about accounting, computing, calculating, like dealing with numbers, right? Like finance. This is what we might call it today.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. Would you mind getting a microphone? We have a bunch of them around. That way they'll be able to hear you online. If you press the button, it'll turn on the lights, and then you'll be able to talk and we'll be able to hear you. Yeah, it's on now. It's on now. Yep. It's on. Yep.
It's on. Yep. I have a question that maybe it's not related to this course, but related to what you mentioned before. Like, we want to have a life, like a job, like every morning when I wake up, I will feel relaxed, or I will feel exciting when I'm going to work. But actually my job is not, I don't hate my job, or it's not like I don't like my job, but just I don't like the life. Like every morning I wake up and then I have to go to my work, and then after finish the work I go home, and then just I don't have time to doing the thing I like. Just then how can I balance it with it? If I don't work, I don't go to job, and then I don't have money or financial things to pay the thing I like. But if I go to work, I don't have time to do the thing I like.
Sure.
So how can we balance it? Actually, I don't hate my job, but just because this job making me have no time to do the thing I like.
Sure. What you would like to look at is you would like to look at your lifestyle that you're living in terms of the amount of expenses that you have and the amount of income that you have. Oftentimes when the mind has craving, desire, attachment, which is one of the main things you're working to eliminate through the teachings of the Buddha, you'll oftentimes live with a lot of expenses, where in reality you could actually shrink your expenses down quite a bit. So then you don't have to make as much money. And then you can actually spend more time doing the things you enjoy. So like here in Thailand, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but you can have restaurants that you go to the restaurant and it's like, noon or 1 p.m. and it's closed. And on the door, it clearly says that it's open until 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., but it's closed at 1 p.m. And you're like, whoa, like what happened? And it's a restaurant maybe. Well, what happened is they sold out of their food at like 11 a.m. or 12:30, and they just closed their doors and left because it's like, we made enough money for today. We're going home and we're going to go spend time with our family. Where what we would do a lot of times in the West or in other countries is we would go out and buy a whole lot more food and make a whole lot of more money because we want money. Yeah, this money, right? But Thai people understand, like, it's not money that's going to lead to a wonderful life. It's spending time with the people you care about and going and doing activities that you enjoy. So they have no problems closing and locking up their business. If they've made enough money for that day, they will just close the doors, they will lock them up. And when customers come and they're not there, it's like, okay, we'll be back tomorrow. If you really would like to have what it is that we're selling and the things that we're doing, we'll be here tomorrow. You can come get food tomorrow, right? So you need to be able to look at your expenses and adjust that, because oftentimes you might have expensive shoes and pants and shirts and jewelry and car and house, and you're just trying to perhaps, buy all of those things to maybe look good for other people. And it's requiring you to have to work to get all that money. So if you adjust your lifestyle and you bring your expenses down, you won't have to work as much. And then you'll be able to spend more time doing the things that you enjoy.
And then another question is, another reason we work is maybe we are working for the future, like maybe something unexpected happens, maybe some sick or some other scenario, we need those all kind of money. So we work is also for the future. So if something like what you mentioned, some restaurant, they work, the money is enough for the day. So they finish, they go to relax their lives. So what happened in the future, like, we don't have this kind of saving then.
If you've built a livelihood that you thoroughly enjoy and that you're motivated and you have ambition and you know that you can do this successfully and make money at it, you don't need a whole lot of money in order to survive, particularly in a place here like Thailand. You can live off of a fairly, minimal amount of money. But in other places where there's a lot of craving and desire, it's a lot more expensive to live. I think you're from China, right? You said you're from China. I don't know the cost of things there, but it's probably more expensive than Thailand, I'd imagine. So you need to be able to, again, look at your expenses and decide, what is it that you're going to potentially move out of your life, so that you don't have to keep spending so much money all the time, because it's very expensive to spend things. And then you're able to maybe save a little bit, because it is wise to save, but you also need to be careful that you're not just craving a higher and higher bank balance. Sometimes people get so happy and excited when they see their bank balances here, but then when it goes down, you get sad and you get frustrated. So then when you're happy with your bank balance here, you're happy for a period of time, but that happiness fades away, because it's called conditional happiness, which I'm going to explain tomorrow in our class. Because once you get, say, $5,000 in your bank account, you might be happy for like a month or two, but then you're not happy anymore. You want 8,000. And now you work. You get to 8,000. You're happy for like a month or two or three, and then you want more. And now you want 12,000 or more, right? This is like someone who's like a multi-millionaire, billionaire, still wanting more money. And that's the mind's craving. It's like an unquenchable thirst. So what I suggest for people is to look at your occupation, look at your job, whatever it is that you're doing. If you're working for a company now, think about, if you got fired from that job today, how long would it take you to find another job? Because you know that, right? Like when I worked in the IT field, I knew I could get another job within about 2 weeks. It was pretty straightforward. So what I would do is I would have enough money in the bank for about 3 to 6 months, that if I got laid off, if the company went out of business, something uncontrollable happened, that I would be completely fine with all my expenses, my rent, my food, my car, my insurance, for about 3 to 6 months. I had that much money saved in the bank. And I knew that this was what I needed, because if I ever got fired or laid off or the company went out of business, I'd be completely fine. And not only does this give you the peace of mind that if the company goes out of business or what have you, you'll be completely fine and you can find a new job. But when I used to go into business meetings and I had a certain idea or a certain opinion, I had no issue sharing what that opinion was, because I knew that if somebody didn't like it and I got fired or whatever, it's okay. I'll go find another job, because I have this 3 months or 6 months of money. I'm not just holding on to this job like, oh my goodness, I can't eat tomorrow if I don't please the boss. If the boss just looks at me in the wrong way and fires me, oh my goodness, I don't have anything to eat tomorrow. You're not interested in putting yourself in that situation. So when the Buddha was talking about confidence and having confidence, you'll have a lot more confidence when you have a bit of a cushion in your bank account, that you can go into work and you know, like, hey, I enjoy going to this job. Sounds like you enjoy going to it. I enjoy going to this job. I'll work at this job. But I don't, I'm not going to die if I don't have this job. So that way you can have more freedom and you can be more confident when you go to work each day that, hey, if I get fired today, it's okay. Of course, you're not going to do anything to get fired. But if for some reason the company goes out of business or what have you, I worked for a company one time that the higher management, the upper management, they were cheating on the accounting, and they ended up, the stock price went way down and they had to lay off like half of the company. And this was something completely out of my control. It had nothing to do with me, right? We were doing our job, but they weren't doing their job. So you can get affected that way by other people's decisions in a company. So you'd like to have a nest egg for about 3 to 6 months. Look at your expenses, bring your expenses down as low as you can, look about what that is, and then save up enough for about 3 to 6 months. And then, you got the point where you don't have to work as much. You can spend time with your friends and family, and you don't have to feel the pressure of, gosh, I got to go to work every single day. If I don't get that paycheck, I'm going to not have food. That's not a good way to live.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, yes, ma'am. We have plenty of microphones around. You're welcome to get one.
We were talking about generosity before, and I don't think being general make a person live a better life. For example, people devoted their time and maybe money to some relationship, but the people keeps giving and giving, but the people around her just keep taking. And actually this really hurt the person's feeling, but they just choose to ignore her feeling. Doesn't that stir up any resentment? Because it's unfair. People who hurt others' feelings, they just ignore it and live their own happy life.
Yeah, one of the things you'll learn tomorrow if you come is how other people can't hurt your feelings. It's not possible. I realize that that's what you think right now, and that's common. But when you gain the wisdom of what's called the Four Noble Truths, you'll see that anytime you have painful feelings in your own mind, it's coming from within your own mind. I'm going to teach this to you in a way that you can independently verify through a traditional style of learning. This is more of a study group that I'm teaching today, but tomorrow you'll see I'll walk you through to help you be able to see that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. Because if somebody is sharing excessively with somebody else and now they get hurt because the other person isn't doing what they want them to do, this is not generosity, because there's some attachment, there's some expectation that I'm only giving you this thing because I want you to do something for me. And this is why the person's not getting what they want, and now they're upset or they're sad or angry or frustrated. This isn't pure generosity. What pure generosity is, which will enhance your mind and will enhance your life, is where you don't want anything back. You're not expecting anything back. So for example, if you practice generosity where you hold the door for somebody when they go into the store, like maybe you're going into the store and you're holding the door for somebody else behind you. If you're standing there with an expectation that they will say thank you, when they walk by and they don't say thank you, you'll be frustrated. You'll be agitated. So you need to get to the point where you're practicing generosity where you don't even expect a thank you back, right? Because if you expect anything at all, you'll get frustrated, you'll get annoyed. And what you need to be able to understand is that with the universal truth of impermanence, meaning things are constantly changing, it's not possible for every single person that walks through that door to say thank you. It's just not possible. But if our mind is craving that, if you're craving a thank you, and that's the only reason why you're holding the door is you want a thank you, you'll be frustrated. So in a relationship where somebody's giving, and they're having these wants, they're not practicing pure generosity yet. They're still practicing craving, desire, attachment, and that's why their feelings are being hurt. But if they were over here where they were selfish, that's not going to produce beneficial results either. There is this middle way that the Buddha taught about how to practice generosity without any expectation of anything in return. And that's where your mind can be peaceful. Because even with your generosity, you need to practice discernment. You need to practice wise decision making. I practice an enormous amount of generosity by sharing these teachings, but I also need to take care of this body too. So like this last week, I've been teaching. This is my 8th day straight teaching. And I've been spending a lot of time with students outside of class too. We've been having some events at my house and different things like this, and students have been coming over. And then last night, some of the students were like, hey, the Euros are on, the football thing. You know, you have a nice TV at your house. Can we come over and watch the football game? And I was like, what time does it start? And they're like, 11 p.m. And I was like, oh, that means it's going to be over at 12:30. I was like, normally I am awake pretty late, but I've been teaching a lot this week and I've been doing a lot with you guys outside of class. I think tonight, maybe, we won't do something together. And plus I'm going out of town next week. So I need to kind of do a little bit of rest and relaxation to kind of get prepared for going out of town. And there's other students online that have been sending me emails and messages that I need to help them. So while we've been spending a lot of time over the last few days, tonight, unfortunately, I'm not able to do that. Right? So you need to be comfortable with realizing like, hey, you got to take care of this being who you are. This is showing loving kindness and compassion for all beings. In order to have loving kindness and compassion for all beings, you need to have loving kindness and compassion for this being first. So if somebody's just giving excessively, they're not making wise decisions about what it is that they need in life and their basic needs, and they still have an expectation there. So that's why they're getting hurt and they're getting those painful feelings. So if you come tomorrow, if you're able, or if you watch the recording or you come in live through the live stream, you'll be able to learn the very first teaching of the Buddha, which is going to be very helpful for everybody and anybody to understand the path to enlightenment and what's causing your anger and sadness. Because as long as you don't understand what's causing it, you won't be able to fix it. And in the unenlightened state, you lack wisdom of what's causing your anger and your sadness. It's typical that we think in the unenlightened state that other people are causing us to be angry. But what you're going to see tomorrow is it's not. Your mind is actually causing it itself. So by understanding what's causing these discontent feelings, then you can actually eliminate them. If you don't understand what's causing it, you'll just be angry and sad and frustrated and stressed and having anxiety for the rest of your life. And who's interested in relegating yourself to that? So if you would like to learn that, I'll share it with you. So that should help you to understand that you need to practice generosity from the middle way, where you pay attention to your needs, and also that you're not having expectation when you're practicing generosity.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so it's basically 10:45. We have 10 chapters that we study each individual week, but usually in this particular class we have lots of questions and things like this, so I usually just teach up to about this point. And then what I'm going to do now is just thank all of you guys for coming. Thank you for deciding that you'd like to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Thank you for being interested to ask questions and understand his teachings and practice them, because it's the very best thing you could do for yourself and for those people around you. As you need help, you're welcome to reach out to me. There's various classes, courses, and retreats. That's all available for you at no cost. There's books, there's videos, there's podcasts. It's all available at no cost. There's audiobooks and things like this. You can even get personal guidance. If you'd like to sit down and talk privately, either while you're here in Chiang Mai or if you'd like to talk online, I have ability. You can schedule appointments in Zoom, because it's one thing learning in a class like this, but it's a whole nother thing applying the teachings to your day-to-day life. So as you would like to receive help and guidance, you're always welcome to come to any of these learning events that we have, or reach out to me privately and I'll be able to help you through asking questions in class, through posting in our Facebook group, through sending a private message, or scheduling personal guidance. So if you'd like to come tomorrow, our group learning program, I'm going to be teaching you about craving, desire, attachment, the Four Noble Truths. I'm going to help you understand what is the problem in the mind and why it keeps experiencing anger and sadness over and over and over again. And I'm going to also explain to you the solution of how to fix it as well, not just telling you the problem, but the solutions as well. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing meditation with students and opening up to any and all questions that you guys might have. So thank you again for coming. And if you would like any help, feel free to come let me know, and I'll talk with you about those things. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap, sawadee krap, sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.